Sitting at our kitchen table, I stared blankly at the wall, mulling over the latest episode with Elaine, my mother-in-law. It was a familiar routine by now. She had shown up unannounced again, her criticism as sharp as the knife I was using to chop vegetables. "You're not even cutting those right," she sneered, peering over my shoulder. "How can you take care of Anna and the baby if you can't handle simple tasks?" I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my cool. "Elaine, we've talked about this. You can't just come over without calling first." She scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "I'm just looking out for my daughter and grandchild. You should be grateful." It was the same old song and dance. Her concern was a thinly veiled attempt to control every aspect of our lives. She criticized everything, from how we decorated our home to how Anna dressed. Nothing was ever good enough for her. But this time was different. I could sense a change in the air, a brewing storm that was about to break loose. "You know what, Elaine? Enough is enough," I finally said, putting down the knife. "Your concern is suffocating us. It's time you respected our boundaries." Her expression shifted from smug superiority to cold fury. "You have no right to speak to me that way. I'm only doing what's best for my daughter." "Doing what's best?" I countered, my voice rising. "You call showing up uninvited, criticizing our every move, and undermining our decisions doing what's best." Elaine stepped back, her eyes narrowing. "You're the one who's not right for Anna. You've never been." That was the last straw. "Get out," I said firmly, "and don't come back without an invitation." The look of shock on her face was almost satisfying, but it was short-lived. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I knew this was far from over. Elaine wouldn't take this lying down, but for the first time, I felt a sense of empowerment. I had stood up to her and drawn a line in the sand. The storm had broken, and there was no turning back now. The next day was tense, with a palpable unease hanging in the air after the showdown with Elaine. I was in the living room, trying to focus on some work when the doorbell rang. Standing there was George, my father-in-law, his expression one of strained neutrality. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I led him to the kitchen, where we sat opposite each other. George had always been a passive figure, shadowed by Elaine's domineering presence. But today he seemed different, almost burdened with something to say. "It's about Michael," he began, fidgeting with his hands. "Elaine, she doesn't see it, but I know he's not right." Michael, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in Elaine's eyes. But his actions told a different story. I had seen his temper, his ability to turn violent over the slightest provocation, and his parents, especially Elaine, had always excused it. "He's been worse lately," George continued. "More aggressive, and with the baby coming, I worry." I was taken aback. George expressing concern about Michael was new. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my guard up. "Is this another tactic?" George shook his head. "No tactics. I'm just tired. Tired of all the pretending, the covering up. Michael needs help, but Elaine won't hear of it. She thinks he's perfect, but he's not. He's far from it." I listened, a mix of skepticism and curiosity brewing inside me. George's words were a stark contrast to the family facade I had always seen. "Look," he said, leaning in closer, "I know Elaine and I haven't been supportive, but I want things to be different for your child. I don't want them growing up in this mess." His words struck a chord. Here was a man broken by years of his wife's manipulation, yet showing a glimpse of concern and humanity. "I appreciate you coming here, George, but it's going to take more than words to fix this. Michael needs professional help, and until he gets it, I can't allow him near my family," I said firmly. George nodded, a look of resignation in his eyes. I understand. I'll try to talk to Elaine, but I knew that meant things were unlikely to change. Elaine's hold over the family was too strong. As George left, a part of me felt for him, trapped in a marriage that had become a facade. But another part was wary. Could this be another manipulation, or was it a genuine plea for help? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Michael, the golden child, was the linchpin in this dysfunctional family dynamic, and something had to be done about him. The following week was a test of patience and resilience. Helene's absence was a relief, but her silent treatment was a clear indication of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Anna, aware of the recent confrontation, was on edge, her worry lines deepening with each passing day. It was a quiet Thursday evening when the veil slipped. The doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent sound that set my nerves on edge. Standing at the door was Elaine, her face a mask of controlled anger. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. I followed her into the living room, where she spun around, her eyes blazing. "You have no right to keep me from my daughter and grandchild," she hissed. "Elaine, we've been through this. Your behavior is unacceptable. It's causing stress, and that's the last thing Anna needs right now," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "You think you know what's best for her? You, who came into our family and disrupted everything." Elaine's voice was rising, her words sharp as knives. "This isn't about me. It's about Anna and her well-being. And what about Michael? His behavior is out of control," I countered. Elaine's expression shifted, a mix of defensiveness and denial crossing her features. "Michael is a good boy. He's always been. You're just trying to turn us against him." "Good boy, wake up. He's nearly 40, and he's abusive, both verbally and physically. He needs help," I shot back. The conversation spiraled, Elaine's denials clashing with the harsh truths I laid out. It was clear she was living in a delusion, her version of reality skewed to fit her narrative. As the argument reached its peak, Anna walked in, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Stop it. Just stop," she cried, her voice breaking. "I can't take this anymore. This constant fighting, the lies, the manipulation, it has to end." Elaine turned to her, her expression softening, but it was too late. The veil had slipped, revealing the true dynamics of our strained family ties. "We're done, Mom. David's right. Until things change, until Michael gets the help he needs, we can't be part of this toxic cycle," Anna said, her voice firm despite the tears in her eyes. Elaine looked between us, her facade crumbling. She left without another word, but the damage was done. The truth was out in the open, raw and undeniable. That night, Anna and I talked long into the early hours. It was a conversation filled with tears, revelations, and newfound resolve. We agreed that, for the sake of our child and for our own mental health, we needed to create distance from the chaos that had engulfed us for far too long. The veil had slipped, and with it, the illusion of a happy family. It was time to build our own sanctuary, free from the shadows of manipulation and abuse. The decision to distance ourselves from Elaine and her toxic influence marked a new chapter in our lives. The days following were a mix of relief and apprehension. Relief because we had finally taken a stand. Apprehension because we knew this was only the beginning of a long, challenging journey. Anna's health, thankfully, began to improve as the stress levels in our home decreased. We focused on preparing for the arrival of our baby, turning our home into a haven of peace and love, a stark contrast to the battleground it had been. However, the rest was short-lived. One evening, as we were setting up the nursery, the phone rang. It was Elaine. Her voice was calm, too calm, and it sent a shiver down my spine. "I want to see my daughter and my grandchild," she said, a hint of steel underlying her words. "Elaine, we've been through this. Until there are some changes, until Michael gets help, we can't have you in our lives," I replied, trying to keep the conversation civil. "You're tearing this family apart," she accused. "You're the problem, not Michael, not me." The conversation went in circles, Elaine refusing to acknowledge the reality of the situation. It was clear she was not ready to face the truth about her family, about herself. After hanging up, I felt a renewed sense of determination. It was time to draw a line in the sand to protect my family from the relentless tide of Elaine's manipulation.